Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I just want to rant about something for a few minutes because I'm disappointed in Murder by Numbers, and not for most reasons. Almost everything this game has got going for it is great. You've got some great characters, you've got some really well done art, you've got a soundtrack which they probably could have added a few more tracks to because they all get it just gets repetitive as you're trying to do really hard puzzles. The writing is great, it's full of snark, it's full of good jokes, and it keeps me interested in the plot, that's for sure. And the actual games of Picross themselves, at least the interface around them, are pretty good. Not too much wrong with them. I kind of have trouble with going over the lines from time to time, but that's more a me thing. So almost everything about Murder by Numbers is actually great. And if you're the sort of person who's into Picross enough that you can do all the sort of advanced techniques that you would learn from years of doing it, well, I fully recommend Murder by Numbers because it's really good at what it does, except for the Picross stuff. Because here's the thing. And here's the thing that Murder by Numbers and a lot of other Picross games do 100% wrong. I'm a casual player. I don't play very much Picross, especially in the 2D space. My jam is more Picross 3D on the DS. That is the best Picross game and you'll have to fight me over it. But I try and play a lot of two-dimensional Picross games as well, right? I've played a fair few. I've played things like Painted Back. I've played things like the Picross games on the DS that weren't in 3D. I've played a lot of them like that, and very few managed to get the difficulty balance right. You see, there's a lot of things you need to learn about Picross in order to successfully actually do the puzzles, in terms of knowing what rows and columns you can do things on. Like certain number patterns on certain grid sizes can let you fill in certain blocks. And there are a lot of different ways to do this, and it's not something that I can very easily explain, because again, I'm only really a casual Picross player more than anything else, and when you're casual, it means that you kind of have a hard time getting your head around these techniques, and most Picross games will not teach them to you. And it gets really frustrating after a while if you haven't played a Picross game in a few months, and then you come back, and it starts out fine, and this is Murder by Numbers and a lot of other Picross games as well. They start out relatively easy, but at some point, the difficulty just gets cranked way up to the point where you find yourself completely unable to do the puzzles, at least at a reasonable rate. And Murder by Numbers, its point is about halfway through the second case. You'll find yourself having to deal with number rows that the game has not told you how to handle yet. There is a tutorial that it gives you, but it only tells you the very bare basics. And then there's a help page. You can't replay the tutorial, but you've got a few help pages you can go through, of which only the very last one says, oh, you can make it so that sometimes you can have a look at a row or a column, and sometimes you'll be able to tell that certain squares are being filled out all the time. But it doesn't tell you how to do that in a consistent way, because I've tried doing that sort of thing and I've managed to get it wrong almost every time, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and the game just doesn't have a way to tell you that you're doing it wrong unless you play it on the easy difficulty. It's got two difficulties, easy and normal, and easy will solve the puzzle behind you if you get it wrong, and hard will be like, oh, well, it's normal, but it might as well be hard. But normal will make it so that you don't get any idea that you've gotten it wrong unless you do a hint check. The game does also give you a sort of thing that's like, oh, here is a column and here's a row that you can do actions on in order to keep going with the puzzle, but it only does it based on what the board is looking like and not what the actual solution is. So it could be leading you down the wrong solution path and you don't even realize it, unless of course you turn it to easy mode, in which case it'll automatically correct the mistakes behind you, and I find that mode to be a fair bit worse in comparison to using the normal mode, because you don't get any idea of what you're doing wrong. You just get told, oh no, that's wrong, and you get slapped on the hand for it. So it ends up turning into a bit of a either a guessing game or banging your head against a wall trying to figure out exactly the mechanics that you need to know. The game just refuses to tell you them outside of, oh, sometimes you can look at rows or columns and see that you can put certain blocks in there, and it's like, no, I don't have the time to beat my head against the wall to figure that one out. And a lot of Picross games do this. It's not just Murder by Numbers, but Murder by Numbers falls into the same trap. It doesn't tell you the more aggressive ways of solving rows and columns that you need when you need them. And if you aren't particularly good at Picross, you're just going to get stuck. And I have a feeling that's going to happen to a lot of people. There are a few people on the Steam forums saying they managed to figure it out, but I'm not entirely sure how. Either they already knew Picross pretty in depth, or they just bang their head against the wall, but I don't have the time. I can't bring myself to do it, and it makes me just want to go play another Picross game where the difficulty curve is a little more fair, or they actually go to the effort of telling you the extra techniques, which the Nintendo games do. Either their difficulty curves are so flat that it takes ages for you to get to the harder puzzles, at which point they'll drop in another tutorial, or they'll just drop in another tutorial when you need it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This is an off-schedule video because I just wanted to say that most Picross games just fall into the trap of not teaching you the advanced techniques when you need them, and just leave you to either bang your head against a wall to figure it out, or have an automatic solver just slap you on the wrist and say, no, you got this wrong, but I'm not going to tell you how. I'm not going to tell you how you could have done it properly. It's a bad learning experience, and yeah, that's why I'm disappointed in it. This has been Blue Maxima, and I'll see you next time.